As we speak, the nuclear nations of India and Pakistan are locked into a rapidly escalating crisis, and neither side appears interested in backing down anytime soon. After weeks of spiking tensions and threats volleyed in all directions, the border between these two countries has turned hot by way of drone strikes, artillery fire, aerial battles, and more. Already the situation has devolved to a level of chaos not seen since the Kargil War of 1999, and if the rhetoric and military movement coming from both sides is any indication, then the current explosion in violence is going to get much worse before it gets better. This is what's happening between India and Pakistan at the most dangerous flashpoint in the entire world. Just before we get started, you're thinking, Simon, you're dressed awfully patriotically for a country that's not even your country. Actually, I'm not. If you want to buy this shirt, can you see that? There you go. Fist, fire, flame. That's not right. Fist, flag, flame. It's available at the merch store. There's a link below. I'm going to take this off so we can promote it throughout the whole episode. And also this hat. Yes, please. Links below. And now let's get back to the seriousness of what's actually happening. Now, before we get into the details around India and Pakistan, we've got to issue the same standard caveat that we mention whenever we discuss a rapidly unfolding crisis. The information that we discuss in today's episode is accurate to the best of our knowledge based on available information up until the morning of Friday, May the 9th, local time in New Delhi and Islamabad. Now, we can practically guarantee that this crisis will have evolved further by the time you see this episode, and while hopefully that evolution has stopped short of the outbreak of a major war, we certainly wouldn't put a bet on those odds right now. As such, we'll be covering the first several days of armed exchange between India and Pakistan in today's episode, and we will come back in the days and weeks ahead to discuss whatever happens next. Now, although we won't give a full breakdown of the circumstances that led India and Pakistan to this moment, we'll at least run through the basics for viewers who may only be tuning into this conflict now. Alright, so on April the 22nd of this year, a terror attack carried out against tourists in a resort town called Pahalgam left 28 civilians dead, mostly Hindu men. The attack took place in a region called Kashmir, which is disputed control between India and Pakistan, and it took place in an area controlled by India, a majority Hindu country. The attack was claimed by a group called the Resistance Front, a subsidiary group within the broad militant organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, which has long received backing from Pakistan. In the wake of the massacre, India accused Pakistan of orchestrating the attack, and both sides ratcheted up tensions in advance of a military exchange. In the period of initial build-up, there were telltale signs that this was not a crisis that would resolve easily, something that India indicated especially clearly by suspending a water-sharing agreement that's held for over 60 years, despite 3 prior wars between the two nations. Now, for the last couple of weeks, we've produced an in-depth look at the terror attack in Pahalgam and its immediate aftermath, and a separate episode on the significance of that water-sharing treaty being revoked. We've linked to both of them in the description if you'd like to check them out. But the strong global suspicions that India and Pakistan were about to begin a violent exchange were confirmed about 2 weeks after the Pahalgam attack took place. Last Wednesday, May the 7th, in the pre-dawn hours of the morning, India launched a series of airstrikes against multiple targets across Pakistan. The attack was codenamed Operation Sindoor in homage to a woman named Himanshi Nawal, who became a symbol of the terror attack in Pahalgam when she was pictured in an image at her husband's side after she had been killed. Sindoor is a powder that signals the marital status of Hindu women, with the powder worn in a woman's hair if she's married, but wiped away if she becomes a widow. Operation Sindoor would see missiles and bombs rain down across 9 targets in both the Pakistan-controlled portion of the Kashmir region and Pakistan's own Punjab province, with India launching long-range munitions from fighter aircraft positioned safely within India's own airspace. India also reportedly leveraged kamikaze drones co-developed alongside Israel, known as the Sky Striker. According to India, the strikes targeted physical infrastructure used by Lashkar-e-Taiba, as well as another terror organization active in Kashmir, Jaish-e-Mohammed. Notably, India insisted that it did not target Pakistani military facilities in the first wave of strikes, although it did strike globally recognized Pakistani territory. According to India, the strikes were a combination of training areas, forward staging areas for attacks, indoctrination centers, and more. Those locations included at least one Islamic seminary evacuated of students in the days preceding the strike, but allegedly still hosting the family of the founder of the Jaish-e-Mohammed terror group. Pakistan, however, maintains that none of the sites impacted were tied to militant groups, and that several dozen people had been killed in the strikes, along with over 50 injured. The nation confirmed that 10 relatives of Jaish-e-Mohammed's founder were among the dead, including his sister and 5 children. The The founder himself has been off the grid for years. The first exchange would see Pakistan make bold claims of its own, asserting that it had shot down 5 combat jets of the Indian Air Force, 3 French-made Rafales, and 2 Russian-made fighters, a MiG-29 and an Su-30, along with an unmanned drone. Pakistan did not produce definitive evidence that it had brought down all 5 jets, and India didn't confirm the losses, but according to unnamed US officials speaking to Reuters, at least 2 fighters, including at least 1 copy of the advanced Rafale, had indeed been shot down by Pakistani pilots flying Chinese-made J-10 fighters. In a brief aside, the distribution of fighter aircraft between India and Pakistan is something to watch as this conflict goes forward, with Pakistan flying a combination of Chinese J-10s and American F-16s, and India pairing its French Rafales with older Russian jets. According to Pakistan, America's F-16s have not been used to shoot down Indian jets so far, but while the apparent triumph of the J-10 over Rafale cannot be properly understood without a whole lot of circumstantial details that we just don't have, it's already become the subject of intense debate and speculation. Reuters also reported on Wednesday the 7th that at least 3 Indian jets had crashed on Indian territory, although it's not known whether those crash reports pertain to the same jets that Pakistan purportedly shot down. Some sources actually reported a far larger air exchange with dozens of fighter jets on each side conducting a long-range air battle from their respective sides of the border. Those accounts have yet to be externally verified, but if true, they would constitute the largest air-to-air battle between world nations in multiple decades. After the first wave of airstrikes by India, intense artillery shelling broke out all across the mutually agreed line of control that demarcates Pakistan-controlled and India-controlled sections of Kashmir. With those shelling exchanges, which have continued ever since, the two sides also have engaged in cross-border gunfire, at times amounting to skirmishes, although it's not yet clear that either side had attempted to push onto the other's territory. According to India, at least 13 civilians have been killed and 59 wounded by cross-border fire as of May the 8th, while Pakistani figures didn't differentiate at that time between civilians killed in artillery shelling and civilians killed via airstrikes. And as the cross-border fire continued in the pre-dawn hours of May the 8th, the second day of fighting, so did the cross-border air attacks. During that night, each side reported drone incursions from the other, with Pakistan alleging that at least 12 Indian kamikaze drones had been shot down as they advanced on numerous areas, including the major cities of Karachi and Lahore. India, in turn, alleged that Pakistan launched its own drone and missile strikes, which India purportedly dealt with through the use of an advanced Russian-made missile defense system called the S-400. India's Air Force stated that it carried out strikes to suppress Pakistani air defenses, clearing the way for easier missile and drone attacks in the near future, although the actual extent of the damage is unclear. By now, one thing should be obvious to all of those watching, even despite the fact that we've only discussed what transpired over the course of 2 days. The exchanges between India and Pakistan have come in an environment defined by its information scarcity, with little to no credible third-party reporting on the ground, at the moment when international news organizations and citizen reporters alike have little means to see through the fog of war. India and Pakistan, meanwhile, have both taken advantage of that information environment, claiming victories, denying setbacks, and framing the overall narrative as they see fit. While it's likely that neither side will come out unscathed when the truth is sorted out after the fact, the truth is less important right now for both sides than their respective ability to control narratives, manipulate public support and perception, and position themselves favorably in the court of international affairs in the near term. As a result, it's worth taking a moment and pointing out what we don't know. Namely, the circumstances that have allowed either side to notch successful hits, the circumstances that have allowed both sides to defend their own territory at times, the state of military buildup or exchanges on either side of the line of control, or the number of soldiers on either side who have lost their lives so far. Right now, only 3 kinds of information exist. Information we simply don't know, information that both India and Pakistan have decided to present as reality, and information that either India or Pakistan or outside sources claim to be reality, but that's in dispute. The truth of this situation is going to be hard to pin down for a while. So in a news environment saturated with both accidental misinformation and intentional disinformation, we recommend treating everything, including what we've said in our own episode, with caution. And look, with that said, the complex picture of the overnight hours on May the 9th has begun to emerge at the time of writing, at least in part. India has reported that Pakistan attempted cross-border drone attacks and missile strikes against at least 15 military targets in north and west India, but that all of those strikes were stopped successfully by Indian air defense. Pakistan denied launching those strikes, with the country's defense minister instead contending that, quote, it will be known all over the world when Pakistan launches a strike, and insisting that Pakistan, quote, will not strike and then deny. Explosions did ring out across the city of Jammu in the India-controlled portion of the Kashmir region, with India claiming that Pakistan had targeted 3 military bases there, but not acknowledging any direct hits. The city experienced a complete electricity blackout, although whether that was due to a successful attack on critical infrastructure, an attempt by India to make targeting more difficult for Pakistan in a dark city, or something else entirely, isn't known for sure. In return, Pakistan alleged that India had tried to hit major cities with dozens of drones over the course of the night, although Pakistani air defenses had allegedly taken down 25 such drones. Pakistan stated that the wave of attacks targeted, in part, the city of Rawalpindi, where Pakistan's military maintains a headquarters. India indicated that its navy had begun targeted operations of its own, although the nature of those operations is still hazy at the time of writing. Exchanges of fire across the Kashmir line of control have continued, and civilians are now being evacuated from areas close to the front lines. The civilian death toll, combining numbers from India and Pakistan, stands at around 50, although neither side has yet released numbers regarding their military casualties. At the time of writing, both India and Pakistan appear to agree, in a practical sense, that the fighting is far from over. Much of the Kashmir region on both sides of the line of control has been shut down, with civilians in the process of being moved out, schools and municipal functions shut down, and hospitals and civil infrastructure being made ready to handle the demands of protracted battle. Airlines have diverted traffic from the area, with some companies stopping service entirely, and a state of emergency has been declared in parts of both India and Pakistan. As of the time of writing, the Indian capital of New Delhi has just been placed on high alert, and all government employees on leave have been recalled to their positions. Indian leaders have yet to firmly commit to future strikes, instead emphasizing that Indians, quoting Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, have always played the role of a responsible nation. It does appear that India will keep up the pressure, but it's not currently known whether New Delhi is looking to escalate the violence further or to begin to wind things down. Pakistani officials, however, appear to be laying the groundwork for a much larger exchange of hostilities in the future. That's something that Pakistani Defense Minister Khawaja Asif described as a, quote, vivid and clear possibility in comments to the BBC, stating that a large-scale Pakistani retaliation is, quote, increasingly becoming more certain. Speaking to Al Jazeera, Asif contended, quote, I have no doubt on my mind now that escalation is imminent because of the continuation of aggression from the Indian side. Pakistan has, thus far, flatly denied launching any missile or drone attacks against Indian territory, both in public statements and in anonymous accounts given to global media. Although that claim does not appear to line up with reality, it is consistent with the grey zone tactics that Pakistan has used in dealing with India for many years, preferring to rely on indirect attacks through proxy militant organizations and otherwise obscure its own involvement. It also may be a matter of framing, with Pakistan looking to describe everything that it's done so far as a strictly defensive response and save itself the option to decisively go on an offense later. Off the battlefield, India has taken several major steps to settle in for a period of heightened tensions with its neighbour. According to inside sources, India has set an earlier start date than anticipated for 4 major hydropower projects in Kashmir, laying the groundwork for manipulation of the flow of water into Pakistan in future months and years. The nation also drew controversy across the globe after ordering the social media platform X to block thousands of accounts on Indian territory, including some affiliated to international news organizations. Online misinformation is growing more common on both sides, often sharing photos and videos that are alleged to represent the ongoing violence, but are instead taken from unrelated clips and scenarios. Meanwhile, both India and Pakistan have placed an increasing focus on their adversaries' attempts to hit military infrastructure, with each of those attempts giving the other side greater justification to retaliate, even though neither side will typically admit that the other was successful. It's important to note that as of now, neither side has avoided targets that the general public in each respective nation would be able to see, either being defended or being hit. And that, in itself, is a sign that escalation is likely. Strikes that the public can see playing out before their eyes are strikes that create a far deeper rage among the people of both countries, and a government under pressure from enraged citizens is going to have an easier time continuing hostilities than backing down. That rage has only been inflamed further by the actions of both governments, with India taking pains to get its opposition parties to issue statements in support of India's actions, and Pakistan televising a gut-wrenching funeral for a 7-year-old boy who died as a result of the violence. Across the globe, Efforts to de-escalate the conflict appear to be falling on deaf ears. In a rare show of international unanimity, China, Russia, and the United States have all condemned the escalation to varying degrees, with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio attempting to de-escalate via a set of phone calls with his counterparts in India and Pakistan on Thursday. Those attempts do not appear to have had much effect, as the nightly exchange of attacks would kick off shortly afterward. Nor did visits from other important members of the international community, including Iran and Saudi Arabia. International protests have broken out in all directions, with the Indian diaspora protesting Pakistan, the Pakistani diaspora protesting India, and a third contingent of demonstrators protesting against the war itself. None seem to have the potential to change the status quo on the ground, however, and onlookers in some nations have raised concerns that confrontations between opposing groups of protesters may come next. To be clear, off-ramps do exist for both nations, and each of them have myriad options that they could use to draw down hostilities if they were so inclined. As of now, though, that hasn't happened. Again, we can all but guarantee that the situation has evolved further by the time you see this episode, and rest assured that we'll be covering whatever's happening in the days and weeks ahead. But even with the situation evolving rapidly, it is important to acknowledge each and every beat of a conflict that has the potential to spiral horribly out of control. Both India and Pakistan can harness nuclear weaponry sufficient to destroy each other, and they're trading fire via air, land, and sea right now. Wherever this goes, we can guarantee that it's not good. But how bad things ultimately get, we still just don't know for certain. Thank you for watching.